Hello and welcome to this video. So, have you ever gotten a tarot deck where the images are really beautiful, you love the deck, but for some reason you just can't seem to connect with it and you're not getting anything from the cards? Well, this was the case for me when I got this deck, which is the Ophidia Rosa Tarot by Layla and Olive. It's absolutely gorgeous, but I had trouble with it for the longest time because it doesn't come with a guidebook. What it has is a fold out with some very simple descriptions for each of the cards, and it's actually quite lovely. They're like little poems, and inside you've got the ones for the minor arcana as well. But I guess for a beginner like myself, it just wasn't quite enough for me. And I think more importantly, actually, is that this deck doesn't quite follow a traditional tarot structure like, say, the Rider-Waite-Smith, Thoth, or Marseille. And so I'm really used to the Rider-Waite-Smith system. So when I use this deck, it's like there's nothing for me to grasp onto when it comes to deriving the card meanings from this deck, as beautiful as the cards are. So today I just wanted to share some tips and ideas that have helped me get more out of the tarot cards where the meaning isn't quite apparent at first. And I'm hoping that maybe it'll help you when you work with imagery that's unique to your deck that you're having a little bit of trouble with. Hopefully these ideas will help you. So my first tip is to look at patterns and symmetry. So for example, this Two of Cups here, what you see here are two symmetrical serpents, right? And it feels like these are two parties in sync and on the same wavelength, the way they're just in this wavy pattern, right? And so what I see here is that they're seeing each other eye to eye, quite literally, and they are connected over here at the tail. And so what this feels like to me is that they are together protecting and nurturing something precious to fruition, which is represented by this flower here. So yeah, this is like one example of what I'm getting from this card. And maybe this other example might be also helpful. So what we have here is the King of Cups. And again, we're looking for those patterns and symmetry. So here you can see that there is a branch in the middle dividing two sides, each with a candle, and it almost literally looks like the divide symbol if you just slant it a little bit that way. I don't know if you know what I mean. So to me this feels like being impartial, seeing the light on both fronts, and that all is full of life and beauty. The two candles is like seeing both sides to a coin. Maybe you're undecided and want everything. Also, anything divided by itself results in one. Like what I'm seeing is like these two candles are like the same. So I'm quite like, if you think of it in a math sense, white candle divided by white candle, anything divided by itself results in one. And maybe it doesn't matter what you choose, it will end up being the thing or the situation it's meant to be. So this is what I get from this card. So my next tip is to make use of the positions and symbolism on the cards. So here I have an example, Four of Cups. Notice the way the flowers are arranged. So there are 3 at the bottom and 1 at the top. And it's not like all 4 are at the bottom. It's not like a 2-2 situation or all lined up in one row. It's very intentionally 1 at the top, 3 at the bottom. Now, the closed eyes in the middle here, for me, feel like a sort of contemplation, or represents something on a subconscious level. And so this card to me feels like it's saying that there is really only one thing on your mind, and you know what it is. So another example in terms of noticing the symbolism is, for example, here the Justice card. You can see that there are black and white candles, and this to me quite literally says it's to do with discerning between the black and white. There's a very obvious thing with the weighing of scales going on here, and with that a sense of duality. And also notice how there are these vines twisting around everything, and that to me says that things aren't always so clear and might have interdependencies with each other. So we may need to unravel and untangle the facts before the scale can work and do its job properly. Okay, the next tip that I have to get more meaning out of the cards is to shift the subject focus. So what I have here is the Three of Cups, and you can see that there are 3 flowers very close together and with similar color patterns. So right away to me that that shows that they are sharing a close bond and that they are a group. And with the 3 butterflies flying into the picture, to me symbolizes a transformation and metamorphosis, and that there will be a bringing about of wonderful and beautiful results. But to get a different meaning out of this, sort of, instead of using the 3 flowers as the subject, then you can shift your focus and use the 3 butterflies as the subject instead. So by doing that, what I see is that there are 3 flowers supporting the butterflies, and there's a sense of interaction and community between the 3 butterflies. Again, I feel like they are a family, and they are in a well-balanced ecosystem because they each have a flower. And this to me says that they are all supported. And with that support and balance, there is a harmony and beautiful dance happening within this group, and that things will flourish. Next tip is to draw inspiration and parallels from other sources. So for this, I am going to use the Page of Cups as an example. As you can see, this is a very full image. Compare this with some of the other cards in this deck, like say this one. There's a lot more empty space, but this card, Page of Cups, clearly is very full. And what this made me think of was actually Bjork's song, All Is Full of Love. And it is a song about springtime, actually. And the song stands for new beginnings, which I think corresponds really well with the page here. And in this particular instance, I looked to music, but you can really use anything else, really. So maybe your card reminds you of a certain poem and evokes the feelings you get from it. Or maybe it has certain pop culture references. So it's really up to you how you want to draw that connection and use that to your advantage in a reading. My next tip is to use numbers. So for example, here we have the Two of Swords. It's got some kind of tension going on here because you see two flowers competing and reaching for different directions, but they're held together at the stem. And what I see here in terms of using numbers is how there are a different number of leaves on each side of this. So there are more leaves towards the left and there are less leaves on the right side. So what I would do is, if this is like a situation where I need clarification on what to do, maybe I will put two more cards, one to the left and right of this card respectively, and see what they say. And like I said before, there's more leaves on the left, and what I see that representing is that you will get more growth from the left option than the right, and maybe that will help guide you in that way. Okay, my next tip is to look for progressions. Compare your card with either other cards around it or just looking for progressions within your same, like within the same card. So let me explain what I mean. Here I've got the Page of Pentacles, Knight, Queen, and King, all Pentacles. And the progression that I see here for these cards is, let's start with Page. You see that the central subject is the mushroom, and there are these symmetrical flowers on the side, and it gives me a sense of like again, it's sort of a duality, not quite. There's this and that, and then you've got this other flower at the top here, and it just feels like there are a lot of exciting things happening around, and that one is eager to explore what's out there. So that's the Page. And next, the way it progresses is that so the Knight, it started with one mushroom for the Page. Now they're venturing out and realizing that there are many of you out there, as you can see from the different mushrooms here. And so maybe you can make friends with like-minded people. And these leaves or ferns in the middle here, it seems like things aren't quite as pretty as imagined, right? Like the ferns aren't, like, in comparison, it feels like it's a little bit less attractive and colorful compared to the flowers that were on the Page card. So yeah, that's what I see from the Knight of Pentacles. And then if you go on to the Queen of Pentacles, this card feels like home and family and of abundance, because there's a little bit of everything here. You've got a little bit of mushrooms, and you've got some leaves, and you got these different types of flowers here, one of each. And so yeah, like, and the way the branches form into a circle gives this card a sort of feeling of wholeness. And from the Queen, we move on to the King. And this feels like a wholeness on a grander scale. This circle sort of image spans the whole card, right? There's a sense of protection, and yeah, just overall feels like a very abundant energy with these blooming lilies, right? These lovely, lovely lilies. So from these 4 cards, there's sort of like a sort of story happening that's progressing. And so that was a progression of different cards, adjacent cards, I guess you could say. But you can also look for progression within a single card. So for example, I have here the 8 of Pentacles, and you can see that there are 6 mushrooms to the side, and then you've got 2 flowers, right? And to me, what I'm getting is that the 6 of mushrooms, the 6 mushrooms that I have here is like a certain level of mastery, and you've done things a certain way and achieved a lot. But then by shifting to something else, maybe like a different way of doing things or a different aspect of whatever subject matter it is that you're dealing with, or maybe even just going to focus on a completely different subject matter altogether, it feels like this is saying you can achieve even bigger things and grow and shine even more that way. My next tip is to build on card meanings that you already know. So for this, I'm going to use the 4 of Wands as an example. So a lot of the times, and again, I'm coming from a Rider-Waite-Smith perspective, this card is usually about stability and having support, right? And in this card, you see that there are 2 flowers and a bunch of leaves. But notice how these leaves twist, right? They're forming almost like a helix structure, just like how our DNA is twisted up. And so what I get is that, you can seek support, or you will get support from your closest ones, those that share your DNA. And, it doesn't have to be like a literal sense, right? Or that from the 2 flowers, it sort of re-emphasizes this message to me, like your partner or someone that's like your twin. And the way these stems twist up, it also re-emphasizes that sense of stability and support. And I also think that it speaks to forming tight connections with those around you. Okay, next tip, combining meanings from other cards. Alright, so for this I'm going to use the 5 of Pentacles as the example. And so from this card, it's very clear that there are 5 flowers, and on top of it, there are 6 branches that form almost like a tent above them. And the first thing I thought of when I saw the 6 branches was to think of the 6 of Wands. And it's a card that I used to get a lot in career readings for myself. And there's a certain sense of triumph in that card if you look at the Rider-Waite-Smith version of it. And with that in mind, and integrating that with this card, what I see is that someone might be using those triumphs as an external shield, right? Using those successes as a personal front between yourself and the external world. But what's really going on inside is actually the 5 of Pentacles. And so going back to numerology, 5 sits in the middle, and so it hasn't quite pushed through yet in terms of the overall course of things. And so combining the meaning that I already know from the Rider-Waite-Smith version of the Five of Pentacles, where, there's a certain sense of lack or being excluded and out in the cold, it begs the question of whether what I'm doing, with all those successes, are they really fulfilling what it is that I need inside? And, it looks like there's a certain void, and perhaps it's asking me to re examine whether the current path is really something that I want. So, my last tip is to use color correspondences. Now, this deck isn't great for that because most of the cards are pretty monochromatic, or at most just have one highlight color. But there are still a few cards that have a different color, so I do think that it's definitely something to note. So what I have here is the Star card and the Tower card, and you can see that they are clearly a different color scheme from, say, the other cards in this deck. So these are both very transformative cards as well. So yeah, maybe let's look at the Tower first. So the Tower here is represented with a sword that's broken. And then we've got the purple flower in the middle. And so swords typically have to do with the mental and intellectual energy, which in this card is broken. It goes back to the meaning of having your existing thought patterns being shattered, and there's a breakthrough going on here. And what the purple adds is that, in a lot of the times, purple represents a higher energy. And so to me, this card is saying that it's got to do with the relinquishing of existing thought patterns. And these breakthroughs contribute to growth in the higher spiritual realms. And next we've got the Star card, which is in blue. And it's very typical for this card, but let's say you didn't know that, right? The color blue often reminds people of water, which is what this card is associated with. And when I see the color blue, immediately I get the sense of tranquility and calmness. And so even without knowing any traditional meanings of this card, just purely based on the color, I think you can apply that meaning of calmness, relief, and peace to your reading. And I guess sort of like as an extra tip, notice what's not there, right? This card is actually quite empty, and so there's a lot of space and freedom for the flowers to grow in any direction they want. And from that, I get a very free and liberating kind of feel from this card as well. So yeah, those are some of the ways that have helped me connect with this deck. And I think by using a combination of these methods, it's really helped me to get more out of the card meanings. So yeah, and I think that working with a deck that's unfamiliar and just stepping outside of your comfort zone can really help flex those intuitive muscles. And I'm really glad that I didn't part ways with this deck, even though things didn't quite click immediately. And working with the cards this way for me has really invigorated a new spark of excitement for the deck, and I think it's a wonderful skill to have, so that it will really help expand the variety of decks that I can work with. So I hope this video helps. Let me know in the comments if you have any other tips and ideas. I would love to hear them. So yeah, alright, that's what I've got for now. Thanks for watching. Bye!